All right, grasshoppers, it is that magical, and I do mean magical, half hour, 30 minutes of this week, starting off the week properly. Hopefully he can stay with me. I'll introduce him here a little bit, but it's getting funny. So we do this show on Thursday that's gotten pretty popular. We have a lot of fun with that. And so we started off like 2 years ago. We had myself, Ron Greshner, Ron Duguay, Dave Maloney. So now we're down. It's Greshner, Larry Melnick, and James Patrick. Fantastic show. We had a ton of fun. So last Thursday, Gresh was busy. James Patrick had his junior team up in Winnipeg he's with. So I thought it was just going to be Larry Melnick and I. He just entirely blew me off. So I had to do the show by myself. I do the show this morning with Kevin Allen. His computer goes out. So I had to do the show by myself for about 10 minutes. So if you leave me, I'm serious.
No, hopefully I'm here. Beth is in Palm Springs. Okay. So I got total internet because usually she's upstairs working. Right. And so we're good to go.
Right. So Barry Shelley's going to jump. Yeah, I'm with you, Barry. Yeah, with the guests. So we can go through the whole show here without just me on it. So we're fine. All right. So everybody knows this is Mark Puttenvink. He's got a company called Patriot Training Systems. Trains everybody. He's trained professional athletes, Navy SEALs, wives, girls, boys, little guys. I guess didn't one of your little boxers? I saw the text. I don't want to get him in trouble, but didn't he stick up for himself the other day? And some kid was.
Oh yeah, we can talk about that. So there was a woman that worked with Beth in New York City, and she took a job, and she had to move the family to LA. So the middle boy at the time was like 6 maybe, and he kind of wasn't happy about the move and all that kind of stuff, and he was acting out. So I said, Beth, well, maybe boxing would help him. Maybe I can contact somebody I know in LA through boxing. And anyway, long story short, it boiled down to I'm going to FaceTime this young man. And I thought, well, we'll give it a run. And now, like a year and a half later, we're still doing it. And he's really, believe it or not, through FaceTime, he's really getting pretty darn good. And apparently, so when we start all this stuff, I tell the kids, listen, we're going to work as long as you want. Here's the 2 rules. You don't use your hands at home. You're a good citizen. And you don't use it on the schoolyard because then we're done. Unless your back's up against the wall in the schoolyard and you got a bully and there's no adults around, then do your business. Well, he did his business. Yeah.
That's classic.
He was being bullied, and he hit the kid with a classic 1-2, a right hand right down the middle. And they're probably going to leave. They'll probably have a wider path now as he walks through the school.
That's true. You know, it's funny you tell that story. When I was a little boy, both my parents have passed now, and my mother's this tiny woman. I think I've told the story before, but and she hardly ever swore, didn't promote violence, anything like that. So I don't want to paint the wrong picture. But I was playing up in Canada, particularly, they play box lacrosse. So they take the ice out of a hockey rink and play lacrosse.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And I was probably a better lacrosse player than I was a hockey player. But after, I think I was like 6 or 7 years old. I'd never been in a fight before. And I must have done something during the game to this one little boy in the other team, because I'm standing there in the lobby with a soda in my hand. He comes over and knocks the soda out of my hand. So I just stood there. I didn't know what was going on. It really didn't seem like it was a big ruckus or anything. No problem. It's only my mother there. So we walk out into the parking lot, and I can remember every detail. Like this, how sunny it was, the gravel on this parking lot, color of our car. We had a blue car. Walked over to the car. She takes a look around, make sure nobody else is around. She says to me, if you ever let somebody do that to you again, I'm going to kick the you-know-what out of you. And I'll never forget the feeling like, what? Like this, my mother said that to me. And unfortunately, she passed away, I think, about 26 years ago now. And she battled cancer for about 5 years and finally lost her. But during that time, it was actually nice in some ways that we could sit around and tell old stories. We knew she wasn't going to last forever. So I would tell the story. And she denied it up and down. I said, I guarantee you did. And I thanked her for it, because that's how I learned to stick up for myself. My mother saying that kind of stuff. But she did also say that she it's funny because, as you know, when you're done yourself, I mean, I was always calling her from the emergency room, get my spleen taken out, or shoulder operator on, concussion, or nose broken, or whatever. So she said, she was doing it all over again. She wouldn't give me a pair of skates, but it's just interesting. Story about it. I think that's fantastic, right? I saw an interesting quote the other day. A guy was quoted as saying, "A meek man isn't a good man. A violent man is a good man, but he needs to learn to control it. But that violent man needs to be there to stick up for himself and others, but he just needs to be able to control it." So with this little boy, it's the same thing, right? He's a great young man, but he also knows how to take care of himself, and he used it. So that's cool.
Yeah, no, that's a great story. And Bruce Lee, I'm probably going to misquote it, but he was asked, if you're such a man of peace, why you practice such a violent art? He said something to the effect that it's better to be a fighter in a garden than being a gardener in a fight.
Yeah. That's
something
true.
along
That's that. I think you're exactly right on that one too.
Yeah.
Hey, one of our loyal listeners here, Ron Jameson, he's up in Buffalo. So I'd like interacting with the Buffalo Sabres, Thunder, and Aspiring Hockey Team. So they were one of the groups that was in Binghamton, and they were fantastic. There's this one guy, and I posted a picture of him, and I believe he's with the Buffalo group. Or no, he's from Michigan. I apologize, but I posted this one guy. He's got the big Santa Claus beard and everything, and he wears this. Yeah, and he's actually, that's his profession. He's a professional Santa Claus, and what a great guy. You know, because these young boys and girls and men and women. So if people aren't familiar, it's ASHA, American Special Hockey Association. I know you're involved in a lot of stuff with hockey, with the vets and all that kind of stuff too. So it's all children, or men and women, children with different levels of disabilities, and they put them in based on their level of disability. There's the A group, B group, and C group. And it was just a real thrill. You know, they would introduce me, you know, that I was an NHL player, and the people were just like this, you know. So when I would say something to them, like, you know, great job out there, like, really? And then after I'd come back, they'd be, did I have a good shift? And so it was fantastic being a part of it, you know, just playing a small role in this kid's life. And the volunteers, the mothers and fathers, and other people who were just volunteering up there were great. So the Buffalo group was really good. They're all an old teammate of mine, Larry Playfair. I played with him in Los Angeles. So he's involved in the local hockey there. So they all knew him as well. And he's one of those guys, and I know you've met a few of them, but on the ice, just an animal, right? I mean, huge and tough. Off the ice, this fantastic person, volunteering his time all the time. So it's a great guy. So
real quick, were these physical or special needs in terms of like autism or
more like the autism category?
Okay,
yes.
Yeah. 2 years ago, right before COVID hit, Tom, they had the special needs festival here in Wayne, New Jersey.
Oh,
and it was again a wide range. I mean, there was a couple teams from Edmonton, or I forget. A lot of teams there, and we played a game against their all-star team of adults.
Yeah,
the Warriors did, right?
Yeah.
So we're lining up in front of the ice to get a team photo, right? And one of their players comes like I would say in his 30s, and he comes up to one of our players and says, "I'm the funeral director, and I'm here to direct your funeral." I'm like, "Come on." That was awesome.
We actually had a fight in one of our games, and it was, the parents were not happy about it. And and it was interesting when the two players fought. It was really interesting to watch. Now, because we're dealing with kids now playing hockey, and some of the parents, instead of saying, "Okay, it's your fault. If you did something wrong, it's your fault." Now, a lot of things now, parents are bailing their kids out, saying the coach was wrong or somebody else is wrong. These two young guys got in a fight, and they were throwing bombs at each other too. I thought they were going to wrestle. The one young guy was deaf, and apparently he had a good sense of humor. And in practices and everything, he's always joking around, pushing people. So he started that on the ice. The other player didn't know that was just a joke. So they dropped the gloves and went at it. The parents, they were just, "Nope, you get off the ice." Like, they're yelling at their own kids. Like, there was total discipline. You could tell that they were we're going to teach you how to act properly, and that's just not going to be accepted. So it was awful. It was a fight. It wasn't, nobody got hurt. But to see the parents really discipline the kids was pretty interesting too. The one, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's a really rewarding experience for you and I and like my veterans to partake. And it was funny too, because this kid actually was from Ontario, but he had a fascination with the show Jersey Shore. Oh, so when he heard he's playing the Jersey Warriors, he got really excited, asking us if we knew Snooki, if we knew this. That's funny. And then we let him score. Like he scored a goal. And the celly he did, Tom, was tremendous.
Nice, that's cool.
So
they were great. They were great on the too. They were a lot of fun. You know, just loving the game and joking around. And we stayed.
That may have been the best trash talk I've ever heard.
Oh yeah, totally. We stayed at this farm that's owned by Larry Pierce, I believe was the last name. He had played at Cornell. He and his wife owned the farm. And it's right outside of Binghamton. Vestal, I think, was the name of the town.
Oh, yeah.
And I know you saw the pictures and everything too. It's just beautiful. Like, he built the rink kind of up on a hill. And where my cabin was, you know, I looked out the window and the sun's coming up in the morning over, you know, right on the rink and the whole bit. So it was classy. Fitness, I was joking around with Kevin Allen this morning, and they're fantastic people. So I don't want to say anything negative towards them at all. But fitness and health was not one of their topics, their main topics. So the breakfast buffet on Sunday consisted of donuts. I mean, bags of donuts. Pizza and beer, and so that was the breakfast buffet on Sunday.
You got all three food groups covered there.
The woman that runs it is funny too. Is Jen O'Brien. She's a total sweetheart, but she has to be a bulldog, as you know, to run an event like that. You're asking for people to do favors and everything. What she calls it donuts. She goes, called it donuts, beer on a stick. What'd she say? It was yeast or I can't remember how she said it, but the donuts were another form of beer. So it was a great group of people, all huge hearts. Just fantastic to be part of it. So
Tremendous.
So one of the things we want to touch on is a couple of topics we want to get on today. Obviously, with everything going on in the Ukraine, and Mark and I are tied into a lot of men and women tied to the military. So just interested to talk a little bit about, what they're going through now. Do they get recalled? Some of them, their thoughts. They've been to war. They've got friends that are still enlisted. So just some of the people you talked to so far, Mark, how are they thinking? How are they feeling?
Well, I mean, so a few of our guys are still in the reserve, so they can get called up or called back and deployed. I guess it's just a general uncertainty right now with everything, with you and I and everybody. But I spoke to Ted about it yesterday. We're going to keep a close contact just to make sure everybody's feeling okay, and not because I think in some ways it's level of stress that they don't need add onto things right now. Many of these guys only came back a few years ago from Afghanistan, so it's still very real and visceral for them. And but we're going to have to really monitor it for sure.
Yeah, it is tough. I know when they had their hard times leaving in Afghanistan, I had contacted a few guys too who had fought over in Afghanistan, and that was a different situation too because they'd lost friends, they'd suffered from a lot of injuries and PTSD and everything. And to see there were some of them that are pretty bitter, right? They'd gone over there, made a difference, and now it's just falling right back in the same place again. I did talk to one guy, a Navy SEAL. It was interesting. I obviously be careful with names here, but his take on it was a little bit different in that when he joined after 9/11, and they wanted to go get vengeance. And it wasn't as much about changing the country over there. He didn't really feel necessarily that you could change the country, but they were going after vengeance, revenge, whatever you want to call it. And in his mind, that's what they'd gotten. So he wasn't as upset as others were. Just interesting take on it. So.
Yeah, I think for some that's probably going to be the feeling but there's also a certain element of people that you and I know in the special operator, like SEALs, where their juices, when there's conflict, they're ready to just hop on a plane.
Yeah, that's what they're trained for, right? And they know what they're doing.
Because I know that during the civil unrest we had here 2 summers ago, some that I spoke to were ready to try and quell the writing down. So
didn't one guy go over there on his own? Some older guy, was that through you that I heard that story? Maybe it was on the news. There was some guy, like a 60-year-old former SEAL.
To where, Afghanistan or Ukraine?
Yeah, went to Afghanistan, right?
Oh, well, the most famous one, the story would be William Waugh, who was 72 years old.
Right.
He went over. Yeah. And they didn't want to let him go over because at that point he was a contractor for the CIA, but he had been a Special Force Green Beret SOB guy in Vietnam and carried through his career. But he had to actually get a lawn chair and sleep in front of somebody in Washington, a decision maker's office. And they finally, "You're still here?" He said, "Yeah." "Okay, well, you're going." 72 years of age.
That's unbelievable. Especially because you don't have to. He doesn't have to do that. He's already served. There's no reason why he has to go.
Just incredible. I mean, it's just a rarity that somebody can be that dedicated to their feeling.
Ron, who served the country as well, prayers for those with PTSD as it cause a trigger. So good point.
100%. Absolutely.
I had. I know we're going to jump to something else, but really quickly, a friend of mine, again, we're not going to mention any names. He'd had a hard time with alcohol coming back from a service, and a great guy. And I spoke to him recently, and he'd done the psilocybin, some mushrooms, right? So he'd gone out. It's not legal yet, but he'd gone out I think someplace in California. So he did the psilocybins. And it was like one of those deals where you'd lay in a room and take the dosage, whatever it is, and there's like 12 to 15 people in the room monitoring everything. And then the next step was doing the toad poison. Is it toad poison?
Well, I think it's on the belly that they somehow extract some kind of something.
Yeah. Did we talk about this already on air?
Not on air. I think privately you and I spoke about it.
But it was incredible. So it's really helped him a lot. Even talking to him on the phone, he's a whole different person. Apparently, it forces you, particularly with the psilocybins, it forces you to go back and think about all these things that happened to you in your childhood that have scarred you and made you the way you are. And it's amazing. I think Joe Rogan is really big on that stuff too. Didn't he talk about it on his show?
Yes, he did. In fact, so Dan Cronin, who you and I both know from the NHL, he's very aware of it, and they're using it in therapy. But more to the point, if there's any veterans out there that are interested in following up on this, Marcus Capone was a former SEAL, or they're always a SEAL. He's a SEAL, and he takes guys down to Mexico where they go through the process, and he's had an incredibly high rate of success. So it's Marcus Capone, Capone. If there's any veterans out there, Google him. You'll find out all you need to know. But I would look into it for sure.
And apparently, it's very intense too. It's not like some people viewed it literally. Some people kind of enjoyed it. Others, like this friend of mine, it's kind of weird. He somewhat enjoyed it, but it was so intense. Like it's something he wouldn't win. Like some people do it once a month, but he's saying, "Listen, I hope I never have to do it again. If I have to do it again, if there's a relapse, then I'll go do it." But
I think the understanding has to be that everything's going to work different for everyone. But it's certainly a very promising therapy, and they're getting great results with it. So certainly something to look into for sure.
Yeah. I like the fact that it's all natural too, right? It's not some manufactured project from a pharmaceutical company.
Exactly.
Good. What did you want to touch on? There's something like
well, so the whole what's going on with Russia and Ukraine and Russian athletes, and what is our understanding? What's our approach going to be moving forward again? Because I know Ovechkin's getting some heat. I even posted something. It was a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction. I posted on Facebook. You're on the wrong side of history, and then I started to think about it. I'm like, you know what? He's entitled to believe whatever he wants to believe, whether it's right or wrong.
Well, we touched on it there, Kevin and I, earlier. And then, we go through history when after World War II, the Japanese people were interned. We've had Asian hate lately because of the pandemic. After 9/11, it was against all the Muslims and everything. Like the Russian players really have nothing to do with it, right?
Nothing. And furthermore, I think we should be more interested and more concerned about what our leaders, both Putin and Biden, what they're doing in the rest of the world that can really control the course of history here. And I know Gretzky's talking about not allowing the Russians in the junior tournament. I think that's wrong. Those are kids. They have nothing to do with what's going on. I understand the anger, and because I had it, and then I had to kind of let it go because it's like, what the problem becomes, Tom? You would know much more than anybody else. People that are either professional athletes or whatever, people start to feel they actually know that person.
Yeah.
So they start to get pissed off at Ovechkin for something that really is his business. Maybe I don't like the fact he scores a lot on the Rangers. Maybe that's part of it too. Yeah.
Well, and he's come out and he's very open about the fact that he's friends with Putin.
Yeah.
But remember, this is Putin. So remember what happened to Panarin, who was against Putin, and all the stuff that happened to him last year. I just think that even if Ovechkin felt differently about Putin and didn't like him anymore, he's not going to come out and say it publicly. He put his family at risk.
Exactly.
So, you're asking somebody to do something to put would I do that? Put my family at risk? Would you put your family at risk over a statement you've got to make about a politician? I'm not.
Yeah. He's still playing. And part of it might be his DNA. I mean, his mother played for the Soviet Union's basketball team in the Olympics. Mm-hmm. So do you remember, I don't really want to, well, all right. Remember Malakoff, Vladimir Malakoff?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Big left shot defenseman, right?
Oh, huge.
Yeah.
And he was in New York when I was there, and he was still pretty tight buttoned. You know what I mean? Right. But again, it's where they come from. It's their home country. I guess there's going to be mixed emotions, but ban them.
But Bill says, but they support their country. And I hear you, Bill. They do. But again, do they really support the country, or are they just saying the right thing so that their family?
I think it's more of what Tom's saying, because they understand. Again, look what happened to Panarin. They can reach out and make life miserable for you, for sure. But to ban these teams, I just don't understand where what that's.
I don't know what's it going to prove to? How's it going to help the situation? Like you said, let's concentrate. Okay, how do we stop what's going on? How do we help that? There's all these sanctions they're talking about, economic sanctions. I don't know. Does that really work? I mean,
what? It's way, as many people would say, it's way above my pay grade.
But it's not going to affect Putin at all. It's not like his approval ratings, because it isn't like over here. There is no approval ratings. He's the dictator. He runs the country. So if you hurt everybody else, if you raise the gas prices in Russia, and now the people in Russia are suffering, it's not affecting Putin at all. He's the one making decisions. I don't know why we're doing the economic sanctions. I mean, I hate to say it, we need to have a leader, and I know it's not about Democrat, Republican. We need to have a leader that can call up Putin and reason with them and say, listen, this is 2022. We just don't do this. But
yeah, well, I think the problem for the whole planet right now is this he might be a psychopath. He's a little unhinged, and it's a very difficult spot we're in. But going back to the players, yeah, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, but you kind of wonder, like, what's his motivation? I mean, is he bored?
No, he's ex-KGB. He was in East Germany. That was his post. And when the Soviet Union collapsed, he instantly saw his world change in a minute. And he's still old. He's still hardliner Soviet Union KGB guy. And he has said, I want to reestablish the Soviet Union. And that's the great fear now for the NATO nations, because let's remember, Ukraine butts right up against Poland, and I think it's Moldavia and Romania. I believe, Romania. So, he may start to go after the other Baltic states, and let's hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're right with these players. So what happened? So we've had Yuri Curry coaches the team over Finland as part of the KHL. He's pulled his team out of the KHL.
That's different. I think that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
You're going to go play there. You don't want to go into Russia when there's a war going on.
Yeah, the safety reasons. Yeah, why are you going to go in there? Yeah.
And
this is less of a statement, more of a safety issue, right?
I think so, yeah. And what's really, really incredibly not motivating, but inspirational are like Dmitry Kristich went back. And there's the Klitschko brothers, Vitaly and Vladimir, and Vasily Lomachenko, who's a current world, these people are worth millions. Lomachenko was here in the United States. He went back.
He's Ukrainian?
He got his family to Greece.
Right.
And then from the United States, and then he went in and he's in a battalion right now. We're talking about a guy who's and the Klitschko brothers were, world champions for many, many years. It's the same thing.
Larry Melnick that we do the show with, he's Ukrainian as well.
Yeah.
Apparently he asked to go back to Ukraine and they told him no, he couldn't come over. They didn't.
Was that right?
Yeah. It's not true, but we spread that rumor.
Well, there's a documentary out on Amazon now called Uke. It's about all Ukrainian players that played in the National Hockey League, like Stan Mikita. There's a whole bunch of them. There's a ton of them.
Right. Actually, Bill, I forgot that Bill is Ukrainian here. Bill Contradiction.
Bill is, yeah.
Yes, that's right. Him and Larry Melnick are tight buddies. Actually, I joke around, do the show. I used to do a show with that Elaine that I was on Survivor with. Right. And we joke around one time that we could be cousins or something. So a gentleman that would follow the show, we call him Deebs. He's an amateur genealogist. So he dug up a bunch of information about Elaine and I, where our families were back like 125 years ago in different counties or neighboring counties over in England. And how he researched the path of how we got back over here a whole bit. So it was very interesting stuff. So he did some research on Larry Melnick. And I guess Melnick is the most popular name over in the Ukraine. One in every 131 people, I guess, have the name Melnick.
Like Smith.
Yeah, well, I guess that's a good point. So he said, other than the name Smith in Canada, which is the most popular name, there's not as many other. What's the say? No, Brown is the next most popular name. Dave Brown. So we got Steve Smith, Dave Brown, and Larry Melnick and that translates to Miller, I guess, in the English language. So
okay, yeah.
There's 144,000 Melnicks, I guess. They're all over. Most of them are over.
And so the woman one of the gyms I train in, her last name is Melnick.
Oh,
yeah.
And we also joke around. We call him Herb on the show. 2.5 Men. There's that Herb Melnick character.
Oh, yeah.
So he got the name Herb. But listen, we want to be careful. I know I can speak for Mark when I say this. We joke around a little bit about the Ukrainian part of it, but obviously we want to be careful. This is very serious. It's not a joking matter of what's actually happening over in Ukraine right now. So, yeah. So you're right. I mean, this isn't going to end right away. So what do we think is going to happen with all these Russian players there? Is there some backlash against when the Russian players go into other cities? Do fans start saying things? Right?
There may be. I hope there's not. Again, because they have nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
I hope there isn't, because that would be a little bit short-sighted on our end. Because look, he's a monster. He's an animal. He's a murderer. He's a thug. But there's also a lot of other blame to go around. Like, how did we get to this point? How did we allow this to happen?
Yeah.
So, it certainly wasn't Ovechkin that caused this to happen, and that's my point.
But you're right, and it wasn't the Chinese people on the streets of Manhattan that started the pandemic, but they're getting attacked. It was interesting 2 weekends ago, or last weekend, I guess it was, not this past, but I was at that Lunar New Year's parade down in Chinatown in Manhattan. And being down there and listening to the speeches from the politicians and talking to the people down there, there's a real fear level. You would kind of get blinded to it. We think, well, that's somebody else's problem. But when you're down there and you see how those people are living, they're really concerned about it too. And most of them, they're not all the same, obviously, but they're really very polite, quiet people minding their own business. And maybe that's one of the reasons it's so easy to attack too, that people kind of pick on the fact that they could beat on them. So,
I think the only thing we can hope for, Tom, is that there is a lot of protests in Russia by the Russian people now.
Right.
And I hear morale is very low in the Russian army.
Right.
They don't really want to be doing this. Because essentially it's like New Jersey attacking Connecticut.
I know. Yeah.
And
but I guess the problem is, though, they're saying to themselves, well, if I don't do it, then what happens to my family? Like, what does Putin do to my family? Right. So it's, you kind of wonder, like, I guess he's so disconnected from the people, right? He doesn't even care about that stuff. That's not his. But you say that for a lot of politicians over here too. So. Yeah,
I think the difference is he is a murdering thug. He has no problem poisoning people like he's done numerous times. He's a bad guy, and it's again, how did we get to this point?
Yeah, good question. Have you watched the Rangers play very much?
Yeah, I've been watching a few the past few games, and last night was kind of a clunker, I thought.
Yeah.
They just didn't look
probably felt like, okay, we can beat Vancouver. You're gonna have those nights, where you get up for the Pittsburgh games. I thought they played really well against Pittsburgh, ultimately lost, but just played a good game. But they obviously played at a whole different level than they did against Vancouver. Yeah.
And that kid played a great game in that last night. Demko.
Yeah, Thatcher Demko. Yeah, I love that name for some reason.
Right. Yeah. He takes up a lot in it.
Yeah. Did you watch the outdoor game?
No, I didn't. No,
I didn't either. I was gone, so I didn't see it. But apparently, it was a real success all around. Nashville's a great town too, right? It's a fun town to go down.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, I think New York. With the age of the team, I think you're going to see some ebbs and lows. But that's when the big guys got to step up. That's when Panarin, Kreider, and those guys got to pull up.
Yeah, definitely. Here's a good point by Bill here too. Slava Fetisov is very obviously, works with. Wasn't he head of Minister of Sport over in Russia? Wasn't he?
Yeah. So 2012, I went over with a bunch of Canadian and American hockey people, and we did a 2-week seminar for the Russian Hockey Federation in St. Petersburg, which I thought was, that was kind of ironic. We had the brain drain here but we used to always be fascinated with the old Soviet Union training. All their best coaches came here, so we're going over there showing them what they taught us. But anyhow, and I did not personally have contact, but the people that ran the seminar had contact directly with Slava, and he's probably along the lines that he's pretty tied into Putin, I would think.
Yeah,
from what I hear.
Imagine what's he thinking, right? Because he's got to know. I mean, obviously this is wrong. I mean, everybody thinks it's wrong. I don't know anybody that thinks this is right other than Putin, right? I mean, it is people. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I think it's almost like you said, there's that constant low-level grade of fear.
Right.
And then maybe we're not alone in underestimating what Putin was capable of doing. I think the rest, the Slavas of the world and the Ovechkins of the world probably didn't see this coming, or at least didn't think he would be this vicious of a just disgusting animal.
So you would assume then that he's got nobody around him that can go to him and say, Putin, this is wrong.
Well, I don't know, but they're saying on television that this like Condoleezza Rice and people that have met with him numerous times say he has changed. Part of the intelligence is saying he's very isolated. He's very fearful of COVID. So anybody around him physically has to be quarantined for like weeks.
Oh.
And so he may be really totally unhinged. And maybe he was all along. We just never saw it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because now didn't he with the nuclear stuff, he kind of pushed
Yeah,
that button.
he raised the level of defense threat from like 3 to 2,
Yeah,
which is not good.
yeah.
But you know,
Well, our thoughts and prayers obviously go to the people in
absolutely.
Ukraine and even for the soldiers, the Russian soldiers, because they don't want to be doing this either, right?
Just saying,
And yeah, and I think we need to be smart here, be aware with the Russian people, not just Russian hockey players, but any Russian people living over here. They're not a part of it, and to retaliate against them in some way is just ridiculous. So,
there was a really moving and maybe thought-provoking story of a Russian woman, older woman, walking up because a lot of these Russian soldiers are walking around town lost, like, hey, how do we get? And they're very disorganized. But anyhow, she walked up and handed him some pumpkin seeds. And he said, what are these for? She said, put them in your pocket because at least something good will grow from this.
Huh.
Meaning you're going to be dead pretty soon. You're going to be in the ground and the pumpkin seeds will.
oh yeah.
And
wow.
this was an older, woman in her 80s that handed this Russian kid who's a soldier. And it's really, really thought provoking. It's kind of.
Wow. That is pretty. I didn't get it. I didn't get it at first when she was doing it. Wow.
I didn't at first either. And I thought about it. I said, oh, okay. I get where she's going with that. Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. But that just drives home the harsh reality. We can sit back and watch it on television and,
Totally.
it's horrible. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, everybody. So again, our thoughts and prayers are everybody involved in this, the Russian soldiers, the Ukraine people and their soldiers and everything. How about the leader of the Ukraine out there fighting too? He's not, what was his quote? He says, I don't need a ride. I need a weapon or something. Is that what
I don't need a ride. I need more ammunition or something.
Yeah, that's right. Somebody wanted to give him a ride out of there. He said, no. I'm staying and fighting. I don't know too many leaders of ours that would do that, get in a fight. They want to send anybody else to fight.
So somebody made a great point. So we see how fierce the Ukrainian population is fighting back. I mean, they're fighting back. And again, these athletes, multimillionaire, like Lomachenko's worth tens of millions, going back to fight and face uncertainty. It's like our guys that when we got 9/11, many men that you and I know, and women, that just said, you know what, I'm going to go over there. I'm going to take care of business.
I know.
But the point that the guy on television was saying last night, the Russian fighters don't have a reason to be in there.
I know.
So that's why the morale is so low. They're not really on board with it all.
Yeah, I know. Sad stuff. Yeah. All right. We'll be back next week. Mark, thank you for joining us very much. We did not touch on your fact that you have a shirt on or not have a shirt on. This week. So
I did, just so you know, and I'm going to post it on social. I did skip my rope this morning outside with flip-flops on because I'm just trying to push the narrative and make the warm weather come.
Nice. All right, buddy. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.
Thanks.